Joe Burrow is the starting quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. He, of course, was not able to finish last year after a wrist injury cut his season short. We did see Burrow go head-to-head with C.J. Stroud in a very fun game last season, a game where Stroud and the Texans got the better of Cincinnati. But Burrow was saying something the other day about coming back from injury, and it has me thinking about C.J. Stroud. Here is the quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals.
It's definitely something I've thought about, yeah. Whenever the injuries start to stack up, it's your football mortality kind of comes into the back of your mind. So that's definitely something that I've thought about and something that I've had to fight through. That's every injury that happens. They stack, and you continue to think about how you can get better from those and how you can come back an improved player when maybe you're not getting the reps that you had because of your injury. So it's always a challenge. It always is. But, I'm built for it. Whenever you fight through adversity and come out on the other side, it definitely gives you a feeling of invincibility at times. But obviously, that is not the case.
I thought it was interesting hearing him talk about that, and obviously he's missed a lot of time with injury over the course of his career, and it has me thinking about C.J. Stroud because Stroud missed 2 games last year with a concussion. It's weird to say, thankfully, it was a concussion, but Joe, he missed 2 games, and when you really look at the numbers, franchise caliber quarterbacks are generally starting, I would say, less than 15 games a year. 9 quarterbacks started all 17 games last year. Tua, Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, Josh Allen, Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, Sam Howell. Wow. Derek Carr and Jalen Hurts. 5 started at least 16. Brock Purdy, Patrick Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence, and Lamar Jackson. And 4 more started at least 15. C.J. Stroud, Matt Stafford, Geno Smith, and Russell Wilson. And I feel like you have to have this in the back of your mind. Stroud will probably miss at least a game every single season. I'm looking at quarterbacks from that perspective now. I don't think the era of Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, guys who stayed in the pocket, who would turtle when pressure was coming towards them, I don't think quarterbacks like that really work anymore. You're going to have to run. You're going to have to use your legs occasionally. You're going to have to put yourself in harm's way. And with the seasons getting longer and longer, generally, you're going to end up missing time. And I am wondering about that side of it for C.J. Stroud. At the very least, he's got a good offensive line, and he got better at avoiding sacks as the season went along. But the guy was getting absolutely wrecked the first couple of weeks of the year.
Yeah, last year, 66 quarterbacks started in games in the NFL last year, and I think the number was right similar to that in 2022 as well. So I agree. The idea that a quarterback is going to play in every single game in any year at this point going forward, it's just fundamentally flawed. If those are your expectations for a quarterback going forward, no matter what team it is, whether you root for the Texans, the Cowboys, the Eagles, it's just not the way it's going anymore. And I think some of that is where they're trying to be more protective of these guys. I think you are seeing quarterbacks sit out longer because to be safe. CJ, when they were trying to figure out how many games he was going to miss last year, there was a belief that he was only going to miss 1, and then it turned into 2. But then there was a question if it was going to be more than that, because they're trying to figure out the right amount of time to stay healthy and for how long. So it's not surprising that there's so few guys, that only 9 quarterbacks started every single game last year. And to hear Joe Burrow talk about it, I don't get Andrew Luck vibes that he's going to bail early on in his career. But I would imagine if you're Joe Burrow, you have serious questions about your future. You have missed major, major amounts of time in your career.
And the Bengals aren't going to seriously invest in the things around you. They're the cheapest organization in the NFL. And I know that they just gave T. Higgins a 1-year deal. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a 1-year deal. So for him, it's interesting. But I look at it from the Stroud perspective, and remember, there were multiple games this year, in addition to the Jets game where he suffered the concussion, where he was taken off the field for a couple of plays. I think it was the Cardinals and the Broncos. Mm-hmm. Davis Mills threw a pass in both of those games. And there were a couple other moments, too, where he got hit hard. He was slow getting up. You respected him for getting up and staying in there. But that's a guy who took a pounding his rookie season. It cost him 2 games. Could have cost him more, honestly, if we didn't maybe look the other way from time to time when it comes to head injuries, specifically for quarterbacks.
Well, I mean, I think it was the Broncos game was the one where people, when he got the concussion, I think the following week, that people were looking back at the Broncos game and asking if he got hurt in that game.
Yes.
There are just the way that, think about the way the season started. He got sacked 11 times in the first 3 games. Mm-hmm. I mean, CJ was honestly lucky to play as many games as he did last year. There are so few quarterbacks left in the NFL who get lucky, because that's what it mostly is luck. Like Tua is one of the 9 quarterbacks who played in all the games last year. What happened the year before?
That's shocking that he's one of those guys.
Yeah, the year before he played it. Now I'm trying to think back to like Mahomes started 16. Did he start 16 because he didn't play the last week of the season?
I know, was dealing with an injury the season before, and of course, there was a big deal where he had that scramble up the middle on the bum ankle. So he's dealt with injuries before. Off the top of my head, I believe that Mahomes did miss a game, and it wasn't due to injury, but honestly, I do not know.
Yeah, so it is, with CJ, it shows the importance, I think, of the amount of quarterbacks that played last year, like Davis Mills and Case Keenum, are going to be important figures for the Houston Texans going forward. Ugh. It's just the reality of the NFL now. Like having 66 quarterbacks in the NFL start games in the NFL last year. That's crazy. That is almost like 1 per team. I guess that is 1 per team. Because that'd be
66?
Yeah.
That's 2 per team.
That's what I meant. 2 per team. I meant one extra. One extra quarterback per team. Like you're gonna have a backup play every single year for some stretch of time. Whether it's what we saw, as you mentioned, where Davis has to come in for a series or 2, or it has to be even more. Like C.J. Stroud's mortality, a quarterback mortality, is one of the most challenging things that faces the NFL right now. Because think back to that Broncos game a couple years ago where they had to play a wide receiver at quarterback.
Yeah.
Like you've seen some awful quarterback matchups in the NFL just because you got backups.
Or like the Browns, they really drove up the average by themselves because I think they won with 4 different ones.
Yeah.
And then they started a 5th one the last week of the season. I forgot. It was another random guy because they had everything locked up. They just didn't play. And so they broke some record the last week of the season. But if you look at the guys that Paul listed as guys that played all 17 games, it's Tua made the playoffs, Goff made the playoffs, Dak made the playoffs, Allen made the playoffs, Love made the playoffs. They're all Baker made the playoffs, Jalen Hurts made the playoffs. So for the most part, that is what you're looking at. It is a lot of luck where if your guy stays healthy, you have a better chance at making the playoffs because you don't have to depend on going 1-1 in Case Keenum starts or going, you have to start. Once you miss more than 3 or 4 games as a starting quarterback, your season is in serious peril.
100%. And this year, is Stroud going to play 17 games? I don't know. But to what you were saying, Joe, I feel like you got to plan on him probably missing at least 1. And you sort of have to operate that way with all quarterbacks. And sure, there were some guys who made it through the whole year, but those guys are playing through some serious injuries at times too. You are going to have to be a damn tough person. And I think Stroud's been that, but we've also seen Stroud take a couple of beatings to the head to this point.